Well, you made it. Welcome back. This is Inconsistency. You are listening to the sweet sounds of Jason Gutierrez, who is me, your host. I'm going to do this whole show in third person. So I hope you like narrative devices that are from serial killer movies. Have you, oh my God, just on a completely unrelated thing. Yesterday I was on Netflix and I was watching this nonsense show called You. I couldn't go through it. The dialogue was so forced and written, and I just can't deal with the entire first show. I think it was 15 minutes of one man monologuing by himself, just this entire narrative of him just basically starting to stalk this girl, and he's just talking about everything about it. Oh my God, it's just so poorly written. Then they had a little dialogue scene of them two making a connection at the bookstore. Ooh, it was riveting. Oh, it was just wonderful to hear. Anyway, that's enough about Netflix. That's not exactly what this show is about. I just felt I had to get that off my chest. Oh, it was a piece of garbage, it was. But like I said, I am digressing very, very much from the show. And in the past week, since I have broadcast or made a video, we have had a ton of news come on, and we've had a lot going on overseas, which I will update you about later in the show. But right now, because this is actually the newest, freshest news straight out of the kitchen. My apologies. So this is something that just came out, I believe, on Friday, which would be the 22nd, right? Am I correct? Friday, yes, Friday the 22nd, I believe it was. The report came out that Mueller is suspected to not prosecute anyone or not indict anyone further in the Russia collusion case. Let me pull up the story here. All right. So this is from Fox News. Mueller report appears likely to validate Trump claim of no collusion with Russia to win election. All right. So this is from Fox News by Mr. Hans A. von Spakovsky. While we don't know yet what's in the report by special counsel Robert Mueller on Russia's interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, many news organizations have reported on what's not in the report, any recommendations by Mueller for further indictments. This is a very good news for Donald Trump and people in the Trump orbit. Not a single one of the nearly 36 criminal indictments Mueller has obtained in his nearly 2 years of investigation deal with collusion between the Trump campaign or Trump himself and Russia to win the presidential race against Hillary Clinton. Okay, right there, this is huge. So there have been 36. That's almost 36 people have been indicted in an investigation that was started under the pretense that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians to get Donald Trump elected. And as far as everybody that's been indicted on this investigation, that is bearing out to be completely false. And he is saying that he is not going to indict anyone else in this, which would then presumably say that there was no collusion, or at worst, okay, here he goes. So if there are no more indictments, that's a strong indication that, to use one of the president's favorite phrases, there was no collusion. Or at minimum, it means the Mueller team found no evidence of collusion by Russia to put its supposedly favored candidate in the Oval Office. Here are some key facts to keep in perspective as we watch what happens over the next few days. From the very beginning, Democrats and others who opposed the president politically had already decided that Donald Trump was guilty of collusion with the Russians. They came to that conclusion based largely on a highly questionable dossier prepared as opposition research by Hillary Clinton's campaign. In addition, they had a predisposition to think the worst of Trump, whom many demonized. All right, so that's as far as I want to read into the article, and we can just dive into what this means. So, like he said, the investigation, Robert Mueller is going to give out a report on Monday. That's when the report is meant to come out. And he is saying that it's being reported at least, that he is saying that there will be no further indictments. And this means, given any fair judgment or, given any benefit of the doubt, you have to admit that there was probably it's really hard to argue that there was collusion between Russians and Donald Trump, and that the Russians are the reason that Donald Trump is president right now. So what is this? What does this mean? So if you don't recall, if you haven't been living under a rock, you know that the news has very much been hammering home the idea that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians by going to Moscow or having Trump Towers or wherever. They were always saying that Donald Trump was guilty of colluding with the Russians to get elected, and that he was going to be impeached and imprisoned for, again, the crime of collusion. There are compilations all over the internet of the news agencies saying this is a bombshell, this is a bombshell, this is a bombshell, the walls are closing in, this is the beginning of the end. You can type any of these phrases in compilation and you'll see tons of CNN and MSNBC all parroting each other, saying that this is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will be indicted, and Donald Trump is being found guilty of collusion. And also Miss Rodham Clinton herself, Miss Hillary Rodham Clinton, has written a book in which she herself says that the reason that she lost, what actually happened during the election, what happened being the name of the book, is that Donald Trump won because he was an agent for Putin, and the Russians basically stole this election for him, when in reality, that is not the case. In reality, actually, American citizens saw Hillary Clinton and saw Donald Trump and decided that they were going to vote for Trump, whether it was from hate or whether it was from love or whatever it is. This is what it is. So what are we going to do? For 2 years, the right has been hearing that their president that they elected and they themselves are either agents of or bots of or working with the Russians, or they've been duped by a Russian agent. That's what the right has been hearing. And with this report, they have a very big I told you so coming to the left. And the left, I would presume, this article that I read is 8 hours ago, and the news of the report coming out just came out on Friday. I think it was Friday. So this is all very new, and we are going to see in the future, in the next in the next few weeks, I would say, in the next maybe months, if in that much time, what the strategy is going to be and how the media is going to spin it. Because the media is never going to say, you know what, we were wrong. We've been wrong for 2 years, and we should be, well, they should be, but they won't be ashamed of themselves, or they should at least be looking into themselves and saying, okay, why did we go on this conspiracy theory of collusion, as opposed to saying, oh no, this man actually won the presidency. I believe that the strategy that the left is going to take is going to be, oh, well, this doesn't mean that there was no collusion. This is simply saying that the Mueller team did not find evidence of collusion, which, if you are going to give that argument out, there is no reaching you. You need to have Russian collusion. You need to believe that Trump colluded with Russia for your own life. That's the lens you are choosing to watch life through. And because Trump can't do anything right and it's impossible that he won, you're going to hold on to that. And that's, I can't put it any further than being a conspiracy theorist. In my mind, it's about the same. It's just the same as being a 9/11 truther. It's like we can't go any further. You're jumping at things that there are significant lines that we will never be able to meet. But I'm hoping that this at least does get the people that aren't all the way far gone to maybe be introspective and see, and see their mistake and choose to look forward and try to maybe talk to somebody who is a Trump supporter and see where the disconnect is and try to make a connection. But I don't believe that'll happen. I believe we're going to see more MAGA hats than ever, or I would hope to see a MAGA hat that says no collusion. And we're going to see a lot of anger on the left, and we're going to see just a lot of smug, and maybe rightfully so, smug and jubilant right-wingers and laughing and mocking right-wingers. And that's going to happen. But let's go back to the election. So the election was won by a Mr. Donald J. Trump because he got more electoral votes than Miss Rodham Clinton. Now, what is the new strategy by the Democrats? The Democrats take that and they say, oh my God, we can't let this happen again. They lost. So what do you do when you lost to a game? Well, if you're a Democrat, apparently you just go out and change the rules. This is what they are telling us now. This is the Democratic Party who have just lost their collective minds, and this Democratic primary is going to be just the most laughable, hilarious, society-destroying thing I believe we will ever see. And this is a Miss Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas herself, giving her opinion on what we need to do moving forward in the country.
Come a general election, presidential candidates don't come to places like Mississippi. Yeah, they also come to places like California and Massachusetts, right? Because we're not the battleground states. Well, my view is that every vote matters. And the way we can make that happen is that we can have national voting, and that means get rid of the Electoral College.
Okay, right there. Get rid of the Electoral College. That's the strategy. If this is how Donald Trump won, then that's got to go. It's so blatant. And this is bad enough. Okay, so they want to get rid of the Electoral College. Very quickly, I need to show you a picture of... let me see. Give me 1 second. I want to show why it is. And I mean, I think it's pretty obvious why it is that the Democrats want popular vote as opposed to the Electoral College, because sorry guys, I can't talk and type at the same time. 2016 by county. So it's obvious that the Democrats want popular vote because the big cities in general, I mean, if we're talking about LA, Chicago, New York, Boston, I don't know, most big cities, and we all know that more urban areas tend to be liberal. And I just want to show you a map of why the Electoral College was made and why we need it. Let's see if I can get this up view image. All right. This is why the founders decided to make us, by the way, we're not a democracy. There we go. All right. So this is the 2016 county level results on the presidential election. This is a lot of red. Okay. So if you look at it, we just have spots of California, the bottom of Texas. I think this is Nevada. So if you look at it, it's very spotty. I'm gonna say if you had a cell phone company and your company had was the blue as far as coverage, that wouldn't be a very good cell phone company. You would want to be in the red. You would very significantly want to be in the red. What I'm saying is, if you don't remember the results of the last election, Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote by about 3 million votes. But this is, if you look at it county by county, which counties were won by Donald Trump as opposed to Hillary Clinton. And it is the vast majority of the country. I would have to say maybe 20% at best are blue. And yet she had 3 million more popular votes than Donald Trump. So if the rules were changed and it was simply the popular vote, Donald Trump would have lost, Hillary Clinton would have won. But what happens to all of these counties who believe that, what happens to all of these counties that felt differently? Now, this is the problem with democracy in general. Personally, I think democracy itself is stupid. I believe in freedom. I don't believe in this government. I don't believe that people can choose leaders for others, because obviously if you love Trump, then you believe that the last person didn't speak for you. And if you hate Trump, well, you're saying that this person doesn't speak for you. And how is he your leader if other people decided that? But you're willing to flip the tables, though, because you have the popular vote. And that's what Elizabeth Warren is talking about. So the reason that I believe democracy itself is stupid, and the founders believe that democracy is stupid because democracy is older than America is. Democracy was started in Greece, actually, and the founders knew of Greece, and they modeled this country a bit after Greece, with the states having their own governments to combat the federal government. And also they put in democratic institutions. But the founders were very specific in how they made this country, that they did not want it to be a democracy. And we do not live in a democracy. We actually live in a democratic republic, which is different than democracy, because they were doing their best to make it so that the country was not simply ruled on majority opinion. Democracy in its basis form is literally the majority having their say and having power over the majority every time. Then that's what they want. And when we say minorities, people always want to look at, skin color and brown people or poor people or whatever they choose to, or gay people, but they never choose to say, you know what, I just have the minority opinion. And they want to get rid of and they want to get rid of the check and balance, which is the Electoral College, which gives which gives less densely populated areas a shot at actually being able to choose their president against more densely populated areas such as LA, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, which are by far more liberal than others. But even if you take liberal and conservative out of it, it's just your lifestyles and your perspective is so different if you live in a place where everybody's together as opposed to where everybody is apart. I mean, if you live in Alaska, you have very little in common with the person that lives in LA as far as your day-to-day lifestyle and what you have to deal with. If you live in LA, you can have the idea of like, there's no reason why I should carry a gun, or there's no reason why I should have to, there's no reason why I should carry a gun, and I feel safe, and we have the police, and there's no reason that anybody should have a gun. But if you're a person that lives in Alaska, you don't have that luxury, because you have to genuinely think in your head like, I could get mauled by a bear today. That happens. I have to, I can't call the police because the police station is let's say 45 minutes away, and I live in a place where it's nighttime for days, and it's cold and it's inconvenient. I have to be able to protect myself. Your lifestyles are vastly different, and you don't know unless you've been there how to live or what rules would work in your version of society, in your state, in your area, as opposed to another. It's incomparable. And I think that we, especially now more than ever, we lack the ability to try to find the perspective of the other. But that would be bad enough to, amongst adults and amongst grown people, be able to, that would be bad enough for us to just have the popular vote. I think it would be a very big problem of the urban areas having a say over more rural areas. But that's not enough. No. They have to take it still further. And this is actually what a Miss Nancy Pelosi has to say about the rules of voting in America and how we should run our democratic processes.
You about it in regards to the freedom of speech issue. And as far as 16-year-olds voting, where do you see that going into the future?
She just was asked, the woman from C-SPAN, I believe, she is asking her 16-year-olds voting. How would you feel about that? And let's see what Miss Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, has to say about 16-year-olds, which would be high school sophomores or juniors, voting in federal elections, voting on your president, the commander-in-chief, the man in charge of the strongest military in the world, and in charge of the biggest, didn't we call the president the leader of the free world? Okay, yeah, they should be elected by 16-year-olds.
Well, I disagree with the ACLU on this. In terms of legislation, we couldn't be prouder than H.R. 1. This is about reducing the role of big, dark, special interest money in politics.
Okay, she's talking about a bill, H.R. 1. I unfortunately don't know exactly what's in it. I'm not going to comment on it, but this is what I wanted to get to over here.
And empowering small donors. It's about ending voter suppression. It's about making redistricting fair. It's really a source of joy and hope to so many people in the country. I myself, personally, I'm not speaking for my caucus, I myself have always been for lowering the voting age to 16. I think it's really important to capture kids when they're in high school, when they're interested in all of this, when they're...
Okay, right there. What did she just say? First of all, she's saying that she's personally in favor of 16-year-old voting, which is just bananas to me. That's just insanity. But she says something very important there. And she says it's important to capture these young minds when they're still in high school. Why would we have to do that? If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Robert Kelly is being indicted for this, for having sex with minors because they consider it a predatory action where he is manipulating these young women and convincing them of things that are not true, or convincing them to do things to further his aim. It's not different in a political way. This seems... it's just blatant. It's blatantly her saying we want the young ones so that they can we want the young ones because they are a goodness, oh my God. They are passionate, that's the word I was looking for. They are passionate about politics, and right now they're strong. But we all know it's blatantly, you just want them because you know that they'll vote for you. There's of course that old saying, if you're young and you're a liberal, if you're young and you're conservative, you have no heart. But if you're old and a liberal, you have no brains. That's the old saying. And she obviously wants them while they're impressionable and that they can be swayed by popular opinion. And that's why, of course, they want the popular vote. Everything seems to be it's just a power grab. It's simply them moving in to never have to lose an election again, and it's just blatant. And isn't that gross? But if you're saying we can vote at 16, okay, all right, we can vote on the commander in chief of the strongest nation in the world. We can vote on the leader of all these grown people. Okay, well, I don't see how you can say I can. You have enough wherewithal or brain power to vote on a president, but you don't have enough to consent to having to a relationship with whoever you choose. Is that what we're saying? Also, you're telling me that you have the wherewithal to to vote, but you don't have the wherewithal to own a firearm? This seems crazy. They'll tell you that these are kids when it's about guns, but when it's about voting, oh no, this you need to capture them when they're at a young age so that they're passionate about politics. Okay, let's say these are fringe people, though. Let's say this isn't the majority. Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe I'm just picking and choosing, although Nancy Pelosi is, of course, the Speaker of the House. So she isn't, she's no non-factor. She's definitely a power player in the political game. But let's see, maybe Elizabeth Warren is just a kook. Well, here's Beto O'Rourke, another front runner in the Democratic Party. Let's see what he says.
Getting rid of the Electoral College, is that an idea that you would support?
I think there's a lot to that.
One more time, sorry. I know it was kind of low and messy.
Getting rid of the Electoral College, is that an idea that you would support?
I think there's a lot to that because you had an election in 2016 where the loser got 3 million more votes than.
Okay, we have an election where we lost, so it's time to change the rules. We can't do that.
The victor, it puts some states out of play altogether. They don't feel like their votes really count. So.
It does and it doesn't. I guess everybody can complain about the rules. I mean, every rule will have some people that benefit and some people lose from it. So the way he says is like, well, there are states like California where people don't even go because they know that California is a blue state and they won't even talk to them. But at the same time, if you're a small state, this is all like it's all unfair to them because they're on that side. But if they were the minority opinion, they would absolutely choose the other way. It's so blatant. It's so self-serving. It's so gross in my mind. But it appears the entire Democratic Party is running on this, and they are running unabashedly, unashamedly.
If we really want every person to vote and give them every reason to vote, we got to make sure that their votes count and go to the candidate of their choosing. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, and it's something we talked about on the campaign trail in Texas in that last Senate.
Okay. By the way, is that something that we want? I know that we've in this country we've stuck to everyone should vote. We need everybody to vote. But is that really what we want? I don't think so. Personally, I don't. I don't think popular opinion has ever been a good, or I won't say ever, but certainly popular opinion isn't always the correct route. And I seem to recall an old saying. I think it's a saying. The road less traveled. Isn't that what they say? I don't think the majority should rule. I believe in freedom and not majority rule, because if we do majority rule, then, I mean, slavery was okay. Everything, just because something is popular doesn't mean it's right. Just because something is accepted in society doesn't mean it's right. And we've had example after example of it being wrong before, but now we think, nope, we're awesome now. If the majority says it's good, then it's good. So we just should make popular vote. I think this is just so radically different, and it's blatant cheating. I'm saying, to me, it comes off as cheating. And I know for sure to any Trump supporter at all, or anybody who's not on the left, It comes through as cheating, as sore loser, as we want to change the rules. We want to be radicals. We don't care about this. We don't want this to happen again. And I don't know how much that makes friends. If you're the person to just flip the Monopoly board if you're playing, I don't want to play with you next time. So what do? How do we mend this bridge where it's like, oh, we must have power? I don't know. It seems unfortunate. But that's pretty much all the news we have so far on the state side. It is it seems to be unfolding crazy. I cannot wait to see the 2019 Democratic primaries and the debate. I'm telling you, 2020 guys, we are in for a lot. I feel like this is going to be the most divisive, the most amazing, interesting, hilarious election season that has ever happened in American history. And we're here to see it. I'm glad we're here to watch it, and I will be here to talk to you about it every step of the way. Now, I have some updates, and these are very sad to talk about. Last week, we had a very sad incident. If you don't recall, I'm talking about the New Zealand shooting. And there was a shooting in New Zealand where they shot up 2 mosques and there were 50 dead. And the shooter had a manifesto and he streamed it live. And I talked about it all last week if you need the details on the shooting itself. But now we get to see the reaction or, the decisions that New Zealand has made after the fact of we get to see the decisions that New Zealand makes after the attacks. And I just really want to say quickly that in the writer's manifesto, actually, no, let me just pull this article up real fast because this seems very interesting in the aftermath of the New Zealand shooting. So this is from the New York Times. So New Zealand bans the Christchurch suspects manifesto. So this is something that I understand, but at the same time freaks me out so very much. And this is just such an Orwellian nightmare that we live in. Or at least I see it building into one. And I feel like this is something very, very scary. And this is something that I understand the justification. I understand the reasoning behind this, but it scared me very much. And I wish it wasn't happening. I wish this was not the case. But New Zealand has banned the shooter's manifesto. And this is from March 22nd. So this was on Friday by Damien Cave of the New York Times. And he says, New Zealand, hoping to limit the spread of hateful ideas attributed to the suspect accused of the Christchurch killings, New Zealand classified his so-called manifesto as objectionable on Saturday, making it a crime to possess or distribute it anywhere in the country. People who have downloaded this document or printed it should destroy any copies, said David Skanks, the chief censor in News. The chief censor? What? They have a chief censor? It goes to show. And the manifesto, I mean, I kind of skimmed through it a very little bit, and I was just hearing other people talk about it. But in the manifesto, the man specifically said that he wanted this. He wanted his attack to further the sides. He wanted to basically radicalize both sides, and he wanted to distance the left and the right, to progress the civil war that he saw as happening. He wanted it to happen, basically. He wanted to quicken that pace, and he wanted it to happen now. So this is what he was doing. And it appears that this is exactly what's happening. It's because now anybody who stands for free speech, I mean, God bless free speech. And they're literally talking about book burning. When he says people who have downloaded this document or printed it should destroy any copies, this is the chief censor in New Zealand. First of all, they have a chief censor. This shows you, like, we take freedom of speech so for granted in the United States. We act like we have, like, that's just a given. It's not. it shows you right now that they have gone out of their way to say it is a crime to hold this. Here, there is an important distinction to be made between hate speech, which may be rejected by many right-thinking people, but which is legal to express, and this type of publication, which is deliberately constructed to inspire further murder and terrorism. Mr. Shank said it crosses the line. Okay, first of all, it crosses the line based on your opinion. It wouldn't have crossed the line if he hadn't done something. If he would have just said it and there was no attack, it would have been fine. But it's important to know what he said in the manifesto, because in the manifesto, he said he wanted to distance people more. If people don't know that motive, they see this as perfectly fine or not dangerous at all. But if you know that the man's motive was to make radicals out of both sides, then this radical action of making it a crime to possess a file, to read an opinion, I mean, how do we get rid of any document because it was written by a murderer? Anything that Caesar wrote that he made to have war against others? And think of the Orwellian, they're just going to erase this from history in New Zealand. This just didn't happen. He never wrote this. The shooter, it never happened. We never get to see that. And I think it's very important, just as a history thing. It's like, it's an attack on free speech. It really is. And an attack on history. You can't just erase history. It doesn't make it disappear. Also, people who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. You can read the worst books and not agree with them. But let's see. So the ruling is part of a wider strategy by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern to undermine the attempt by the suspect Brenton Harrison Tarrant. Oh, man, I didn't want to say his name. To gain global notoriety. She has pledged never to utter his name publicly. Why'd you write it in the story, stupids? And to press platforms like Facebook to deny access worldwide to the manifesto, which was published just before the slaughter of 50 people in 2 mosques, as well as the video gunman apparently... as well as the video, the gunman apparently live streamed of part of the attacks. Okay. The video I understand on the basis that, those are people's lives. And I suppose the argument could be made either way. Because if you never did it, you don't have evidence, and I don't know. But that I can understand, because these are people, they have families. They don't want us to have their family members just murdered, just go along all around the internet. I understand that. But when we go so far as to book burning, which, I guess it wasn't published by anyone, but it's, for all intents and purposes, it is a written thing. It's a book. When we go so far as virtual book burning in this, and to criminalize possession of it, it's blatantly an attack on free speech and an attack that people on the right would find disturbing, and it's so scary. I just can't explain how Orwellian this seems. Prosecutors have also gone after people who shared that video. As of Thursday, at least 2 people had been charged with sharing the video via social media under a law that forbids dissemination or possession of material depicting extreme violence or terrorism. Okay, so dissemination means what? Against the government? It seems this is just a power thing. This is the government coming in and saying this is unseeable, this didn't happen, this is just the memory hole of 1984. Others could face related charges in connection with publicizing the terrorist attack under a human rights law that forbids incitement of racial disharmony. These cases are possible because while freedom of expression is a legal right in New Zealand, no, it's not. Obviously, you don't. It's not if when you do, you have everything pulled out, and not only for things you say, for things that other people said that you possess. You can't own a book that doesn't agree with the orthodoxy of the state, doesn't fall into the parameters which are subjective on the state. The parameters are more restrictive by far than the First Amendment guarantees in the United States. And Mr. Shanks, the country's chief official in charge of determining what is protected speech and what is not, made clear that the gunman's white nationalist diatribe was off limits. So in that, I feel like it really seems like they're advocating it here at the New York Times, but I'll give it to them. Maybe they weren't. But this is New Zealand is by all intents and purposes a Western country. So it is sort of, I feel like nowadays with Twitter and the world becoming so small, we are all interconnected in it. And New Zealand is seen as part of the West, and we will see that people very much want to. The West bounces ideas off of each other, and we all model each other off of each other. We're all connected loosely through allied ties and all of that. So when the world, especially the Western world, sees censorship in New Zealand, they fear that it's coming to America, and they fear what it does. It promotes, encourages, this is back to the article. This was Mr. Shanks. He says, it promotes, encourages, and justifies acts of murder and terrorist violence against identified groups of people. Mr. Shanks said, it identifies specific places for potential attack in New Zealand and refers to the means by which other types of attacks may be carried out. It contains justification for acts of tremendous cruelty, such as deliberate killings of children. Okay. Yeah, it talks about bad things. But what about the anarchist cookbook? Would that be also banned over there? I don't know, to be fair, but I'm personally not for any book burning at all. I find it. I mean, don't we have like the Satanic Bible and the Necronomicon out there? And aren't there? Isn't there? I don't know, man. Books are books, and I feel like that was it. It's before in this country. It would have been, or I guess in the world, I think, but. Book burning was seen as a bad thing. You know, the Knights, it was a very memorable scene, or a very memorable thing, very talked about or very portrayed in movies, was the Knights, or where Germany would go around gathering books and burning them in the square just because they were no longer acceptable by the government, and everything that is no longer acceptable is to be burned and erased and forgotten. That was a very famous thing of the Nazis when they did it. And fascism was burning books. It was like they would burn Bibles, and they would burn. I just remember a time. I say this, I'm 24 years old, but I remember a time where the idea of book burning or erasing books forever was just so abhorrent in popular society that we would never accept it. And now, even though in the manifesto itself, he is saying we are hoping that that both sides radicalize, meaning the left radicalizes. More so, I believe he wanted to trigger the left because they're easier to push into action. I suppose he like I said, I didn't read it all. Maybe he also wanted to get the right to join him in killings, but I'm pretty sure he understood that it would be far easier to get the left to reactively make laws and make decisions that would then trigger the right to fear that their rights are being trampled upon, in which now they have to stand up, which would harden the lines and harden the divisions. So what else has New Zealand decided that they were going to do? Okay, so New Zealand has also decided that they are going to ban all weapons, all semi-automatic rifles, I believe, and they are going. My apologies. There. Okay. New Zealand is going on a gun ban, and they are banning certain types of firearms, and that is what they're doing. So now they've gone full book burning, so trampling on what equates to the First Amendment of the United States, and I only connected to because, like I said, I believe that they're the West, and I believe they are connected at the hip. I would say all of European, like most European countries, and America and Canada, I believe, are all on a very similar, if not the same boat. So they decided to go on banning guns. Let me see if I can find. Give me 1 sec. I'll find exactly what the rule is. But so New Zealand gun ban. My internet is slow. My internet is slow. My internet is slow. Internet is slow. Okay, well, I suppose it's not very important. The idea is they're banning weapons such as the AR-15 and semi-automatic rifles and probably weapon and high cap magazines and basically all the ideas that they say they have here of banning certain weapons. They are doing so over there. They're saying they need to ban this and that. More military style, all again kind of subjective things that people on the right wing would say that's arbitrary, and that people on the left would say, well, like it's obvious what an assault rifle is, and we should all know. But of the weapons that they have banned, New Zealand decided that they were going to they sent out letters telling people that they have to turn in their weapons and that they were going to be banned. And they've been telling people to voluntarily turn in their firearms to the police. And of an estimated 1.2 million firearms that would... Okay, so let's see. New Zealand's gun owners have so far voluntarily surrendered 37 firearms of an estimated 1.2 million since the mosque shooting. So New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern encouraged gun owners to surrender their weapons after announcing that her government is set to tighten gun laws in the country. A few New Zealand gun owners have begun voluntarily surrendering their firearms to local police in the wake of the Christchurch mosque shooting last week that left at least 50 people dead. New Zealand police said that as of Tuesday night, 37 firearms had been surrendered to the police nationwide. They did not provide a breakdown of how many people owned those guns, the types of firearms, or the districts where the guns were surrendered. New Zealand has an estimated 1.2 guns registered to civilians, according to the 2017 Small Arms Survey. That's about one gun for every 4 people in the United States. It's estimated that there is more than 1 gun per person. Okay, very quickly. This shows you why the people on the right, and anybody who I won't even just say the people on the right, gun owners and gun enthusiasts, the reason why they always say they will not do a registry is for this reason right here. The government they have that information and they keep that information very quickly. Let me see. New Zealand gun ban. Let's see. I'm just trying to get the details on what the plan is. I'm going to go to this last one. It took 6 days to plan new gun laws. Let me see what the idea is. Prime Minister announced a ban on military-style semi-automatic guns on Thursday. The ban includes weapons that can be modified into the same kinds of guns used as that's so arbitrary, you're saying nothing. All military-style semi-automatic weapons, all high-capacity magazines, and all parts that allow weapons to be modified into the kinds... Okay. It is... See, that's so arbitrary. They don't say anything of what is legal, and that's the problem. Like I said before, on another show, where when the laws are vague, it's more scary because it's... You can just say, you can choose to apply them however you decide to, and it's harder to follow. And when laws are hard to follow, they're easy to break, which are making more criminals out of people that would otherwise be good. A day after the mosque shooting, 2 mosques in Christchurch, Prime Minister intends to change gun laws. Okay, so I think I got the big thing about this, but all right. So what do we do here? Let's say the situation doesn't change, and this article that I read is from March 20th, so this is a little old. It's been 4 days, but where do we go from here? If you're in New Zealand, where do you go? What's the move? You see that in of the 1.2 million weapons that are registered, you only got 37 of them turned in. Presumably, that's less than 37 people because at least one of them had 2 of those firearms. What do you do? And the only thing you can do is threaten with force. That's all. That's because that's the only tool that the government has. The only tool that the government has is force. At the end of the day. So anytime somebody wants to make a law, understand that that law equals forcing you to do X or forcing you to surrender X. In this case, it would be guns. What are we doing? Are we threatening to throw people in jail? And like I said, this is a radical overreach again from the left on a reactive thing, which they've never had attacks before. This wasn't a problem, but no, they just have one attack and they just radical decision. We're just going to ban all these weapons. We're changing the laws. And this is exactly what he said. This is exactly what he wanted, was to harden the lines, and genuinely good people that would give their lives for others, people that would put their bodies on the line for other people, and who will never harm, mean no harm, and would all, in all senses of life, be good people, own firearms and will not fold on owning their firearms and their right to own them. You make criminals out of them, or you put them in a position where they're doing something that they don't want to because you decided to change the law, or because there was one criminal, one monster amongst the millions that decided to go out there and shoot people, and now everybody has to suffer for it. And that's not justice, and that's not individualism, which was the ideal of which I thought was an ideal, but I don't know how much it is anymore. Okay, yeah. So some guys tweeted a photo of him handing over his rifles. All right. But that's New Zealand. At least, it's New Zealand is one thing. Their culture is different than ours. And it's, I guess if they decide to do that, what can you do? Well, I'll tell you what, at least at home, we have maybe they wouldn't even think of doing that at home, right? Well, no, that's not exactly. Here's Bloomberg with their opinions. This is from a Mr. Francis Wilkinson. New Zealand has banned rifles. Why can't America do the same? By the way, banned rifles. All rifles? I thought that hunting rifles were okay because we have the right to own firearms to hunt. They're all such liars. Anytime a leftist tells you, oh no, we only want to ban this type of weapon, they're liars. They always change the rules. They write the rules in a way that they can decide whatever it means at the time. And also, just on the front, they want to ban all guns. They do. They say they don't, but they do. They can say otherwise all the time, but they do. All right. New Zealand banned semi-automatic rifles this week. By the way, semi-automatic rifles includes so many weapons. It's literally World War I. We had semi-automatic rifles. The M1 Garand of World War II, semi-automatic rifle. We're banning all semi-automatic rifles? Yeah, you believe it or not, those are also hunting rifles. No, they're not as it's a bolt action rifle is a different tool for a different situation. And I guess you could be like, oh, well, that, I guess this counts as a hunting rifle because it's bolt action. But by the way, generally speaking, far more accurate at range. So if you wanted to be a murderer that way, you can do that. Far, far longer range on those weapons. And also shooting time, not that much different. It's probably significant, but a well-trained shooter can get those shots off pretty quickly, just the same, and far more accurately than a semi-automatic rifle. But that's beside the point. The point of the matter is, it's arbitrary. A weapon is a weapon. It goes to show that they're just going after semi-automatics because they know they can make them seem scary. But at the end of the day, it's a completely arbitrary thing. A gun is a gun. A gun can kill. A bullet is a bullet, just the same. And they're these laws are written and they're just gonna be changed because you let them in an inch and they're gonna take a mile. And we all know this. New Zealand banned semi-automatic rifles this week and made the ban effective immediately. They made the ban effective immediately. Just imagine. So from one day to the next, you've gone to being a completely happy gun owner. You have your semi-automatic rifle. You've never committed a crime with it. You've done nothing. It's been on the shelf gathering dust. You just like to look at it or whatever. Or let's say you are from New Zealand or you are from America and you do own an M1 Garand, or that was that was your grandfather's, or you do own a historical rifle that was a semi-automatic, which, like I said, has been around for a long time. And you just have that on your mantle or whatever, and you have it up there. Now it's illegal. Now you have to get rid of it, even though it has a history of your family and, your father died or your grandfather died in World War II or whatever your story is. All of that is done. This thing has to be banned, even though it's done nothing to anyone. Okay. To prevent, quote, stockpiling weapons while the legislation is being drafted, the Kiwis... What the fuck is a Kiwi? Am I tripping? What? What the fuck is a Kiwi? Anyway, the Kiwis are apparently not big on the hopes and prayers mantra that the U.S. Congress adopts after each gun massacre. By the way, I love how they attack hopes and prayers as though, like, oh yeah, anytime someone gets shot, all they do is say thoughts and prayers and thoughts and prayers. It's like, well, no. First of all, a lot of people on the right encourage more guns, but then you always mock them and say, oh, you think more guns is going to help crime? It's like, well, yeah, that's why they said it. They wouldn't have said it if they didn't think it. And maybe, just maybe, it could be right. It could be wrong, but it could be right. You don't know. What, are you an expert? Or do you know the future? Are you a simulation machine? What are you talking about? By the way, like I said, there was a report of a man who had shot at the mosque shooter, which made him run away, which could have saved lives. We don't know. And there's examples all the time of people who have either just pulled their weapon and stopped a crime, or shot people that were trying to rob them, or defended themselves with a weapon. That's just... If you look for it, it's obviously there. But just to mock thoughts and prayers as though it's malicious or bad to give out thoughts and prayers when you can't do anything else. What do you want? You want radicalism is what you want. I find it so gross that they find it appropriate to just mock and just to spit upon the idea of thoughts and prayers. Like, that's the best you can do for people that are grieving. What are you supposed to do? It is easy to be dispirited by the cravenness of conservative politicians. Maybe it's not just the politicians. They like to put in politicians because they don't want it to be the people. They love to make it, oh, these bad politicians. No, believe it or not, some of these people, a lot of these people feel this way, and the politicians just speak for them. And by the frequency of American gun deaths. Yet those failures obscure a key development in U.S. gun politics. These are the glory days for the gun safety movement. The March for Our Lives, which emerged from the 2018 massacre at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, galvanized the youth across the country and inspired millions of Americans to march for stronger gun laws in just 6 years. Yeah, so those high school students that they want to get them at 16. This is what they want. It's so blatant, and everything is happening exactly as this man wanted. They are radicalizing both sides. I'm telling you what, the guns have been a line that people have drawn forever, and they are coming after them, and people will not give them up. That's the problem. The only tool you have is force. That's the only tool you have. If somebody says, no, I do not want to give you my weapons, you are making them a criminal, and you are saying, we will throw you in jail, or worst case scenario, murder you. We will take your life from you. And even if it's not in a literal sense, in the metaphorical sense of, we will take everything that you hold dear, your entire freedom, and we will throw you in a cage for owning something that we do not want you to have. Inspired millions of Americans to march for stronger gun laws. In just 6 years, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America has grown into a formidable political force with millions of supporters, 350,000 donors, networked activists in every state. They are winning the argument by about a 20-1 margin. According to what? Americans support stricter gun laws over leaving current laws in place. Fewer than 1 in 10 Americans support less strict laws. I don't know what that means. Emerging power has produced tangible results, according to the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. The gun safety movement experienced a tectonic shift in 2018. The center tallied at least 67 new gun safety bills signed into law last year. That's always the best time to make decisions, just right after traumatic events. That's always when you make the best decisions, when you're in high stress, high trauma, of course. That momentum continues in Washington. The House of Representatives, flush with new Democratic members who campaigned on gun regulations, passed a universal background check bill in February. Multiple inquiries into the National Rifle Association political activities and Russia connections. Russia, huh? Are they going to be just like Trump? Are they going to be just like are you going to set Robert Mueller on the NRA and see if they themselves are also guilty of collusion? No, they probably will, just because they can then indict people along the way for unrelated crimes, with the NRA clearly on the defensive. Meanwhile, the state government... Okay, so this is kind of a puff piece. It's kind of long, but we get the idea, okay? This is the problem. I don't know how we come together at all. It doesn't seem like we will. By the way, just to kind of get it over with, I'm running out of time, so I have to really kind of quickly go over these stories. We are ignoring a few very, 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 very big stories because we like the story of, I've lost some other articles. But this isn't the only attacks that we've had over the past time. Okay, what has happened in other places around Italy? Yeah, Islam sees an attack that doesn't put them in the limelight. They are right there on its heels. So this is from NBC News. Bus driver in Italy abducts 51 children, sets vehicle on fire. Carabinieri officials freed the hostages and captured their kidnapper after an operation that we see in films with special agents, a prosecutor said. And I actually have an interview that they filmed with the child. I'm going to have to read it kind of online. I'm going to have to read it because it is in Italian. Give me 1 second. All righty. And let's pull this over here. This is insane. The bus driver apparently... Here, let's let the child who was there say this. By the way, have you heard of this beside me? A totally unprofessional show on YouTube, just totally broadcasting from the sofa. Have you heard about this story on the news? Are they talking about banning buses? No, not at all. Where's my mouse? Okay. Well, we live in Crema. We went in a second hour. We went to do gymnastics. Then we wanted to return to school, have a snack. We waited 10 minutes because the bus arrived late. Then we boarded, we said good day and sat down. Then this guy told us, quote, "You must remain silent. I'm going to tie you with some kind of knots like this." It says unintelligible, I'm assuming knots. And then everyone was scared. I understood only because there was no lane dividers. And because he didn't take the street which he had to take to the school, therefore he took another way. Then we arrived in Milan. Around Milan, we stopped 3 times. The first time, he threw diesel everywhere. The second time, there was a type of, how should I say, some small curtains soaked in gasoline and put in the windows. Then the third time, he told us he wanted to take revenge for his children because his children wanted to come to Italy but didn't have the means of transportation to go. Therefore, they went by sea and died. And therefore, he wanted to take revenge for his 3 children and kill us. Did he cite something political? Did he talk about unintelligible? No, he spoke in general. Yes, in general. He also said some kind of government. He said fault of the government of Salvini and so on. Okay. So off the front, we have a man. He is, let's see what the article says, just so that I can give further detail. Let's see how they wrote. Maybe they wrote something good here at NBC. A bus driver in northern Italy abducted 51 children and their school chaperones Wednesday, threatening the hostages' lives for 40 minutes and setting the bus on fire at a Carbonari blockade. Officers from the National Police Force broke windows at the back of the bus to reach passengers and got all of them out without serious injuries before flames destroyed the vehicles, authorities said. The driver was apprehended and treated for burns. Prosecutors described him as a 47-year-old Italian citizen of Senegalese origin and said he told authorities he wanted to vindicate the Europe-bound migrants who have died in the Mediterranean Sea but did not plan to hurt anyone. They didn't even, that's such a rageful thing when it's like the Italians aren't the sea. The kids have nothing to do with it. What, you want them to ship them here on planes? However, the suspect said the suspect identified as an Osinyu SY made preparations that showed his actions were premeditated, such as buying canister of gasoline. Obviously, they were premeditated. He also sent a video to friends in Italy and Senegal indicating plans for bold action with the message, "Africa, rise up," they said. Okay. So now, everyone is seen as hateful and mean and bad for not wanting to take in migrants. And then we have things like this. Asai was being investigated on suspicion of kidnap, intention to commit a massacre, arson, and resisting law enforcement with terrorism as an aggravating circumstance since the event caused panic. You think? You think it caused a little bit of fear? Think it got people nervous? Prosecutors said they have found no evidence of Islamic radicalization or ties to extremism. Say it appeared the bus driver acted alone. Chief Prosecutor Francesco Greco praised the Carabinieri for moving swiftly to block the bus and remove the children. They carried out an operation that we see in films with special agents. Thank goodness, because by then the intense massacre had ignited and the man was starting to set fire to the bus as he did. Milan Provinci Carabinieri Commander Luca De Marchi told broadcaster Sky TG24 that the bus was ferrying 2 middle school classes between school and the nearby gym in Cremona province, some 25 miles from Milan. The driver threatened the passengers, telling them no one would survive today as he commandeered the bus, De Marchi said. Okay, so this is 51 children that just had, this is an attempted murder on 51 children. Why are we not hearing about this? Why is this not news? What is going on? And we're not talking about this. I mean, we look at people on the right who are scared of immigration and we see them as hateful and bigots and all of this. Meanwhile, you know, this mosque shooter, obviously it's news and obviously it should be pushed everywhere. But I'm seeing articles saying that it should implicate all white men and all of these other articles that are saying white men are at fault or the right wing are at fault. But meanwhile, we have an attempted burning alive of 51 middle school children because in revenge of the migrants that are coming from Africa, and nothing. The news says nothing. And if only that was it. This happens after the shooting. So why are we not talking about this? If only that was it. If only there were no more talks about that. But it is not true. And if the internet would decide to cooperate with me, I could show you more examples of the same thing happening in a different place in Europe. This was, I believe, the day after the mosque shootings. Oh no, my computer is not happy with me. Let me see, I can turn it off. Okay. Okay, there it goes. All right, so in Utrecht, Netherlands, there was also a shooting, and as soon as I pull up the article, I can give you more details about it. But this was, I believe, 2 days after. Okay. So this is from the BBC 2 days ago. Utrecht shooting suspect Tanis admits deadly tram attack. Turkish-born. Oh, I wonder what religion he identifies with. Turkish-born blank asshole jerk off 37, wounded 5 others and was arrested on Monday after a citywide manhunt. A judge on Friday extended his detention for 2 weeks as investigations continue. Prosecutors are assessing whether he was driven by terrorist motives or his action came from personal problems combined with radicalized ideas. 3 other men, aged 23, 27, and 40, were arrested after the incident but have since been released. Prosecutors said their investigation now led them to believe the gunman had no help from other people. A spokeswoman from the public prosecutor said the suspect had admitted 3 charges: murder or manslaughter with a terrorist. He's admitting to it. How are you saying that you're investigating it still? Murder or manslaughter with a terrorist intent, attempted murder or manslaughter with a terrorist intent, and making threats with terrorist intent. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has previously said his country's intelligence service was looking into the attack. Investigators had earlier established that the suspect had no prior relationship with the victims on the tram. A letter was discovered in the suspect's getaway vehicle, which police say has led them to consider a terrorist motive. Prosecutors say Mr. Tan was known to Dutch police and psychological evaluation has been arranged. Neighbors has described the suspected gunman as a loser. You can say that again. And petty criminal rather than a terrorist. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte is expected to join a march in Utrecht on Friday to commemorate the 3 victims of the attack: a 19-year-old woman and 2 men aged 28 and 49. Okay. Another one that, why isn't this a thing? Why are we not looking at this? This is from the Times. So he's confessing to terrorism. Now, it's hard not to go full-on conspiracy theorist when on one hand, it's a white man who is making an attack, puts out a manifesto that says that his idea is to radicalize both sides and to get people to accelerate the civil war. And all that New Zealand does is ban everything. This is all over the news. Everyone's talking about it. Bloomberg is saying how we should model ourselves after New Zealand because they were so quick to ban guns after an attack that we have to do that as well. If you look at it, everybody is saying that we have to do something. It's only common sense. It's only common sense. It's only common sense to ban something that other people that other people know they have the right to have and that people refuse to give up the right to have. That's what people are saying in America. Meanwhile, we have 2 attacks, one of which the man is admitting to have a terrorist intention. The other one admits, I guess both of them have terrorist intentions. One is in defense of the African refugees flooding into Europe, which people have a problem with and people disagree with, and there are people who do not want that to happen. And the other taking a Turkish man, which, I mean, if you're familiar with Turkey at all, they're not Christian conservatives, not at all. Most of them are for Islam, and he's being charged with terrorist attacks himself. And I'm sure more details will come out further, but it doesn't seem like the media wants to push these. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't even seem like they're writing laws for it. Which, I mean, I don't want more laws to put on the books, but it seems very selective of when they decide to do it and when they decide not to. Either way, it's fishy. And either way, it's things to keep an eye on. But if I really wish I didn't have to be so doom and gloom on the show all the time, but it really seems scary that the sides are being radicalized, and I believe we're in for a lot. We're in to see a lot, and we choose to see what we want to. And I only hope that I can help you see things from another way. And if you guys can help me see things from another way, I encourage you to send me a message and put a comment down below to let me know what you think and maybe open my eyes and show me articles that you either want me to talk about or you want me to read to see if you can convince me of otherwise. But the way I see it, the sides are getting as far apart as possible. I'm gonna try to just keep an open mind and see things through a positive light, but it is getting more and more difficult. I am very excited to see what other crazy ideas we get from the left, because I'm sure we're gonna have some. But aside from that, you got to live life one day at a time. So spring is breaking. It's the first day of spring was what, 2 days ago? Yesterday? I don't even know. But it's springtime. It's getting nice outside, everybody. Go outside, enjoy the sun, make a friend. Don't talk about politics. If your friend owns a gun, leave him alone. If your friend wants to take your gun, tell him to beat it. No, try to convince him otherwise. Democracy is stupid. I will say that. Don't at me. Yeah, no, I would like to get into a fight about that. That's fine. I might do a show on that. I have to read Democracy, the God That Failed. Then I would be prepared to do a show about that. If that seems interesting to you, feel free to post a comment about it. Anyway, I'm rambling. But I had a lot of fun doing this show today. I really hope that everybody has a wonderful day. I hope you go outside. I hope you get a tan. I hope you get to go on vacation. I hope the checks get fatter. And I hope you're very happy. And we will see what the future holds. And I'm sure it's going to be great. Remember, it's a great time to be alive. Even though it's scary sometimes, it's better to be at the apex of the book than the bottom. So let's just remember that, and let's move into what's coming with our heads held high, and let's all hug it out and love each other. This has been Inconsistency. I am Jason Gutierrez. You can follow me at @BaseSammySosa on Twitter. Yeah, I love you all. You guys have a great day. Be safe, please. And I hope I don't have to talk about another shooting ever again, but I doubt it. You guys are the best. Take it easy. Adios. Goodbye. Arrivederci. Beat it. Leave.